Hello, I'm Charles Curves, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Curves Show. This week, I explore lessons that we can learn from a great movie, and movies are a great source of lessons, of insights. A Few Good Men is a great movie. Julie and I watched it recently. When I first watched it many years ago, in fact, it was released in 1995, I fell in love, or should I say lust, or maybe I won't say anything, with Demi Moore, or Demi Moore as some would say. Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise were fantastic also. As a former lawyer and now doing work also as a legal strategy consultant, in amongst my other activities, I deeply appreciate how hard legal cases can be. There are 7 big lessons, salutary, crucial lessons for us from this wonderful movie. They can teach us new insights into how to handle our C-19 responses. Stick around. I think you'll find these insights of great value. This show is built on the formula, on the foundation of SA plus P equals S, self-awareness plus passion equals success. Since 1993, when I left my successful legal career to reinvent myself as Australasia's passion provocateur, I have educated, inspired and provoked audiences, large and small, and individuals to discover and pursue passion. And that discovery process raises self-awareness. I have helped people via my books, Passionate People Produce Passionate Performance. I've spoken as a keynote speaker at conferences. I have run 1-day, 2-day, 3-day, 12-month programs for teams. I have coached people one-on-one on this amazing journey called life with a focus on self-awareness and passion. It makes all the difference in you being a success. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." So I hope this show inspires you and provokes you to examine your life. You can see I'm wearing my red jacket. Red is the color of passion. Red is the color of my brand. This wonderful jacket has become my brand, and I wear it so that for those watching on YouTube, as distinct from those listening on a podcast, when you see a bright red color in your day-to-day life, it reminds you about your passion, about finding it, about pursuing it, and about understanding the wonderful resource that it is for each one of us. Passion is a source of unlimited energy from your soul, your spirit, your heart. And it's your energy that enables you to be productive. It's your energy that enables you to achieve anything. If you don't have energy, then you need the other 2 sources of power, and that is time or money. These 3, time, energy, money, are your only 3 sources of power. In this show, each week I explore one big idea because too many ideas confuse us. If you get one idea a week from this show, I think I'm adding value to your life, and it can change your life when you take action on that idea. Sometimes just getting an insight can change your life. Each week I also share with you practical resources to help you reinforce and implement that idea. The lyrics of a song, a book, a great quote, a spiritual tip, a health tip, and some humor. After all, life was not meant to be entirely serious. And I assure you, I don't take life entirely seriously. You know, when I'm 120, I'll probably die. And then go, well, what was the point of that? Because in 120 years, out of billions of years of existence, it's not much, is it? This show is not politically correct. I have no intention of being politically correct, and I love useful addictions, including my addiction for coffee. This show subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. The human spirit is a wonderful, wonderful resource that you have inside you. Tap into it. Use it. Don't just be a physical and mental being. You are a physical, mental, and spiritual being. So, what's happened this week in Melbourne, Australia, the planet? Well, the big news is that yesterday in Melbourne there was a demonstration, a peaceful demonstration against C-19, against pandemic, lockdowns, regulations, rules, politicians' behaviour of over 400,000 people. Just get that. 400,000 people marching through the streets of Melbourne. That is extraordinary. Last week, I reported to you it was extraordinary that there were 138,000. And guess what? In today's major daily newspaper, not a mention of 400,000 plus people on the streets of Melbourne. That is censorship absolutely in its full demonstration to you. The Murdoch press should be ashamed of itself. The Herald Sun should be ashamed of itself. It's a disgrace. So everybody on social media, get out the message. And these mainstream newspapers are becoming less and less relevant. I say they are disgraceful in holding themselves out to be proper journalists, proper newspapers of record. During the week, our Premier's outrageous pandemic bills were blocked in the upper house of the Victorian Parliament. That was wonderful news. The legislation is anti-democratic, it is dictatorial, it is wrong. And for any Premier to say he needs more power than he already claims to have is simply mind-boggling, and it perhaps might give us a clue that the fact is he doesn't have the powers that he claims to have. That's why he wants these new powers. So after the event, he can say, oh, well, look, if there were any doubts, I implemented them. Well, fortunately, he's been blocked in the upper house, but I say this government is the worst government in Victoria's history, in Australia's history. I warn you to keep your eyes peeled about digital identity steps being taken by the Australian government, by governments right around the world. Digital identity. The governments want to be able to track your every move. We must resist. Your freedom is at stake. They'll say it's for your benefit. It's for the benefit of the whole so that we can track you every moment of every day. That's a social credit system like the Chinese Communist Party's got. If you're not smiling at the right time, we'll be tracking you. The debate also goes on as the fallout from COP26, the climate change conference. That was a total fizzer. Everybody, please do your own thinking about this. I've done mine, as regular listeners and viewers would know. It's being sold to us, this whole anthropogenic climate change, as an existential threat. I say BS. It's nothing like it. I'm all in favour, as you know from my hemp activities, of living sustainably, of looking after our planet, but we do not have an existential threat. And then to wipe out eating animal food, so we all go become vegetarians and vegans, and then to not use electricity. There is an evil plan afoot, people, and it relates to the plans of the globalists, of their one world government agenda. Be aware. And then we had the smoke and mirrors. So not only did the Herald Sun not cover an amazing demonstration on the streets of Melbourne yesterday, it then spends pages and pages and pages writing about sex messages sent by the captain of the Australian cricket team and his resignation. Pages of this stuff, pages. But don't worry about what's really important, because this is called smoke and mirrors. This is called distraction. We have an existential threat to our Australian, to our democratic, to our free way of life that we spent thousands of years fighting for. Wake up. If you don't think this is an existential threat, I urge you to wake up and think about it. If you think everything's going to go back to normal, it's not. The globalist agenda is clear. There won't be a going back to normal. Already, the jabs are being promised to you every 6 months. Every 6 months. Not just double jabbed, not just 2 of these gene-altering injections into you, but every 6 months. The Chief Health Officer of New South Wales said, if you had your second jab more than 6 months ago, it's crucial that you get your next jab because your immunity is waning. In other words, these jabs don't do anything except pump stuff into you, and nobody knows what's being pumped into it except the big pharmaceutical companies. Are you going to be happy taking a 6-month jab? I've spoken to some intelligent people who say, sure, what's protecting me? Well, there you are. I won't ever. So before we get to today's big idea, I invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, to this podcast. I invite you to visit our websites, covest.com, charlescovest.com. You can find out about the Self-Awareness and Passion Quest. You can find out corporate programs that I can run for your organization or one-on-one executive coaching. Lots of resources there. Subscribe to Passion Points to Ponder, and of course my email address to get in touch with me for any suggestions, comments, and thoughts. So today's big idea that comes from a great movie, A Few Good Men. Do you follow orders from above, or are you willing to protect those who need protection? This is the key closing lesson from this wonderful movie. When the senior Marine of the 2 charged with murder says to the private who says, we were following orders, the senior one says, no, we had to protect Willie, who needed protection. We did not have to follow orders in those circumstances. Just think about that. This movie can be appreciated on many levels. Julie and I watched it again recently. She loves it. I loved it. As I said in my intro, I had some perhaps some slightly impure thoughts when I first watched the movie some years ago. And I think today I want to share with you 7 big insights, some salutary, crucial lessons that we can extract from this movie, this 26-year-old movie, first released in 1995. Number 1, Jack Nicholson, what an actor. He thought his important role at Guantanamo Bay, which of course comes into the news in a big way with the 9/11 dramas and then the arrest of people and locking them away at Guantanamo Bay, Jack Nicholson considered that the importance of his work protecting Americans from attack meant that anything that he did was okay because the purpose and the meaning of what he was doing justified the means. He had the power, the prestige, the status, and an amazing ego in enabling him to run that role effectively, but he considered that he was above the law. He was above the rules. Number 2, under the C-19, under the lockdowns, under the nonsense that's gone on around our world, calling this a pandemic when it's not even a state of emergency, the police are given orders. And they go, we're just following orders. Should they? Just because police have a command and control model, should they follow those orders? Well, the lesson from the movie is no. The Nuremberg Code, developed from the trials held in Nuremberg following World War II, said that following orders was no excuse, just as the major finishing lesson of the movie says. No, the fact that you're ordered to do something, to be cruel to protesters, to fire rubber bullets at peaceful protesters, to harass ordinary citizens in their homes, the fact that you're ordered to do that doesn't give you the excuse to let go of your conscience. You have an obligation as a human being to not simply follow orders. Are you aware of that? Number 3, a crucial question in the movie is, did Jack Nicholson's character, Colonel Nathan Jessup, order a code red? And a code red is knocking a guy into line to make sure that the troops are not at risk. How do you prove that he did order a code red? And this whole question of proving evidence is crucial in what's going to come out of this whole pandemic. Who knew what when? And in Victoria, we had a whitewashed inquiry to try to prove who ordered a disastrous security company, a disastrous quarantine of a hotel run by a security company, an incompetent security company, $30 million contract. Who in the Victorian government ordered that? Well, nobody did, as it transpires, because there was no smoking gun discovered. And what the movie had to do is, gosh, how do we prove that someone did? Because we know Premier Dan Andrews ordered it. Absolutely, everybody knows that. It's like a murder trial. People know, the police know who's committed the murder, but many times they can't prove it. Proving things is one thing, quite a different thing to suspecting or knowing that someone did something, but then being able to prove that. That code inquiry was a total disgrace, was a total blight on the Victorian and Australian legal system. And I despair, no, I don't despair, but I'm deeply concerned about the direction in which our judges are going. I say they're being politicised at an ever faster pace. And when I first graduated as a lawyer in 1973, I had great faith in our judiciary. I no longer have that great faith. The fourth lesson from the movie is that in court cases, it's hard work to find the relevant evidence and to work out how to present it. You can have a magnificent case, but if you don't have the right evidence and you don't present it properly, you can lose it, particularly if you are requiring a judge to show a little bit of courage to push back against the existing government. It's hard work, like a lot of good things in life. It's hard to be good. It's hard to achieve good outcomes. That's why passion is so important in your life. It's hard, and passion gives you the energy to do these hard things. I have a passion for freedom, for fairness, for justice. Lesson number 5. Whistleblowers play crucial roles in uncovering corruption. And in the movie, the whistleblower who was consumed by guilt told Tom Cruise a crucial piece of evidence that in fact Jack Nicholson did call a code red. And then, and what I'm saying is that in the C-19 response, there is going to be a need for whistleblowers, and indeed the legal cases with which I'm involved presently need whistleblowers. Evidence is needed, and I call on public servants, on police, on health workers to come forward to me with that evidence. In the movie, the whistleblower came through with that evidence, and then he was too scared to go to court and committed suicide. But whistleblowers play a crucial role, and let me assure you, in big cases, they often turn on one crucial piece of evidence, a piece of evidence that's present and therefore leads to success, or is not present and therefore leads to failure. Lesson number 6, Tom Cruise, the lawyer, the prosecuting lawyer, had to be courageous because if his claim against the colonel was held to be spurious, then he would have been court-martialed. And then Tom Cruise had to decide in the case whether he could achieve the outcome of getting Jack Nicholson to admit that he called the code red. And many of you have seen the movie, and you saw that point where Tom Cruise masterfully, psychologically, just like governments are playing psychological games on us now, Tom Cruise managed to do a psychological game on Jack Nicholson so that in the courtroom, Colonel Nathan Jessup says, "Too much of that code red." Bang, the movie stops. But it took great courage, and it often takes great courage to achieve great things. And that courage is fueled by your passion. Lesson number 7, that comes back to the closing lesson. We each have a duty of care to each other. This is 1,000 years of English law. This derives from the Magna Carta. Human beings have a duty of care. You cannot simply go along with life and not care whether someone is being harmed. And omission is as bad as action. If you see someone being harmed or you can prevent a harm, it is your duty of care to do something. And I say to you, and here's a spot of alliteration for you, the police, the politicians, the parents, the pharmacists, the pharmaceutical companies, the pedagogues called teachers, the principals of schools, the physicians, all have a duty of care. And the fact that they're ordered by government to do something that's causing harm to another person who need protection, particularly children, particularly adults, I say ignoring that duty of care has consequences. That's a tort. You can't just say, I was ordered to do it. If you ignore your duty of care, and I call upon all of those categories, and I point it out to you loud and strongly, and I'm running court cases on this, there are consequences. And I was going to share with you 7 lessons, but there's an 8th lesson. And the 8th lesson is this: ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's the principle. You've all heard that. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And the duty of care that the law imposes on you depends upon your level of knowledge. So if you're a physician, your level of care, your duty of care is greater than those who are not physicians. If you're a school principal, your duty of care to your children is far greater. And the fact that you are instructed by a government to harm a child with these jabs, you can't say, I was ordered. Wake up, everybody. There will be consequences for the outrageous overreach of government in this state, in this country, on this planet, because this overreach is driven by evil intent. I say it to you again. Overreach by government in relation to this pandemic is driven by evil intent. Go back and watch the movie. Go back and watch and be reminded about your duty of care to other human beings, particularly those who need to be protected. And don't you dare say, I didn't know, because it doesn't matter. You will be held to account. My quote for you by Woodrow Wilson, elected President of the United States in 1912, 109 years ago. Liberty has never come from the government. Liberty has always come from the subjects of it. The history of liberty is a history of resistance. My song this week long-time viewers and listeners will go, well, it's going to be an old-style song. Aha! I've got a shock for you. This song is Raw by Katy Perry. You held me down, but I got up, already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice. You hear that sound like thunder, gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, 'cause I've had enough. I see it all. I see it now. And on it goes. Have a listen and get inspired. My book is The Invitation by Oriah Mountain Dreamer. Here it is. And The Invitation is a short piece of writing, and this short book explores the meaning of these words. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dreams, for the adventure of being alive. My spiritual tip for you. I invite you to think about where you need to be courageous this week, like Tom Cruise was in A Few Good Men. My health tip is to look at a 27-minute presentation by Dr. Gary Fettke, an orthopedic surgeon from Tasmania. Gary Fettke, G-A-R-Y-F-E-T-T-K-E. The Failure of Medical Education. There's beautiful insights there into understanding what to put into your body and how the medical profession has had no education around what to put into your body. And a spot of humour. And since we're talking about A Few Good Men and the Marines, well, let me tell you a story about a Marine who came into a town late at night, hard week he'd had, and he's looking for a bed, and he found a motel, and the guy said, well, all we've got is a twin room, and there's already a Navy guy in there. No one wants to share a room with him because he snores so loudly. No one can sleep. The Marine said, I'm so tired, I'll take any room. He takes the room. Next morning, comes in to pay his bill. The owner says, how'd you go? He says, I absolutely slept beautifully. He says, how on earth did you do that with the snoring? He says, when I came in the room, I went up to the Navy guy, gave him a big kiss on his cheeks and said, hello, gorgeous. And the Navy guy spent the whole night wide awake looking at me while I slept beautifully. Love it, love it, love it. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you think about how you're approaching the challenges in your life. I hope this week's big idea, the lessons from the great movie, I hope have inspired you to go back and look at that movie and think about your decision making. I again invite you to visit our websites, covest.com, charlescovest.com, subscribe to this podcast, to this YouTube channel. And if you enjoy this show, please share it amongst your family, friends, colleagues. Thanks for being with us. I hope you have a passion-filled, courage-filled week that you embrace so that you are truly alive rather than living a life where you are not truly living, where you are willing to take the risks that are going to take you on this amazing journey that is the right journey for you in your life. Look forward to being with you next week. Bye.